All right, so again, welcome to our session. It's going to give an overview of ICO and our research program that we have on campus. As I said earlier, we will post this on our YouTube channel for people to refer to. So I have a series of questions for our guests, but if you have questions, definitely use the Q&A feature to be able to get some questions that you have asked and answered by our participants. So I'm going to start off with actually having our speakers give sort of a brief introduction, if you will. So if you can give your name, your position at ICO, and maybe your research activities, whether you're on the IRB, sort of your research area of focus, that would be great. So Dr. Z, you're in my upper left-hand corner, so I always got to start with the folks over there.
My name is Rebecca Zoltowski. I have a PhD in neuropharmacology. I teach in the first and second year curriculum biochemistry. I'm coordinator for neuroanatomy lab, and I co-teach the pharmacology course, which is a second year course. I do research here at ICO as well. I have a couple of projects. One is an OCTA project, and where we're looking at the retina of people that are pre-diabetic versus those that aren't, but the pre-diabetics are also on a diet with an increased avocado and mango intake. So we're looking to see if there's any changes. This is done in collaboration with IIT, which is across the street, and they're measuring blood flow and memory testing and a few other things. And then I have a student oriented project, and where we are looking at how drugs have changed. Drug use in our clinic has changed from the standpoint of what are the most commonly used drugs in our clinic to treat diabetes and hypertension are the two areas we're looking, or sorry, not hypertension, glaucoma are the two areas we're looking at for right now. But we've just gotten started. But the goal is to create a large database of this so we can look at changes across time. But also, I'm working with a group of students and a colleague on the concept of food deserts. If the zip code that the patients live in, there are food deserts, do they have a greater risk of problems with diabetes? Because we would expect that they would have a harder time controlling their diabetes if they can't get to good quality food. And that's an exciting and a great example of how we can just, as we're creating this database, we can start answering other questions as well. And so the database is very early in its creation, and we're looking forward and getting excited about being able to answer some of these questions.
Awesome, thank you. Dr. Roberts, you're next.
Okay, so hello everybody. It's good to be with you here tonight. Glad you're able to attend the webinar. So my name is Daniel Roberts. I'm a professor of optometry here at the college, and I have been involved with research since I started at the college about 35 years ago. My initial research interest is in the area of glaucoma. And if you know much about glaucoma, there are lots of different subtypes of glaucoma. And I became interested in a particular subtype of glaucoma that we started studying. And we started looking at patients that are in our population. And as we were studying that subtype of glaucoma, we identified, kind of by accident, a subtype of the subtype that was masquerading as a condition we call pigment dispersion syndrome, which can cause pigmentary glaucoma. And one thing led to another. We started getting more interested in that subtype, and that's what I've been researching at the college for many years. We found that the subtype is not uncommon at all. It's probably present in about 2% of our patients, but nobody's ever heard of it. So we thought it had application on a large scale. And that's what I've spent most of my time doing, trying to understand the subtype, how it presents, who it affects, how much of a risk factor is it for glaucoma. I have a degree in epidemiology as well, so I tend to look at things from an epidemiology lens. In other words, who in the population is being affected by this condition, and how do you diagnose it, and what's the natural history? At the college, I I guess I primarily consider myself a researcher and a clinical faculty member. So I spend the majority of my time doing that. I also wear the hat of Director of Student Research at the college. So we've been actively trying to develop and improve our facilities and infrastructure so that we could support student research here at the college. And I think we've made a lot of good strides doing that over the last few years in particular.
Thank
So
you, Dr.
I'll move
Dr.
on to
Roberts.
somebody else. Go ahead.
Okay. All right, Dr. Peng.
Oh, so my name is Dr. Yipeng, and this is my 18 years at ICO, and my research area is all related to baby, kids, myopia control, amblyopia. Amblyopia is a condition, lazy eye, so the visual acuity, the vision is not good. Even you do the glasses correction or contact lens correction, the baby or the kids still cannot see. I also do with my students, I also do dry eye in children and computer vision syndrome in children. And as Dr. Dan Roberts pointed out, we have the summer research program, and it's a very active program. And actually, Lindy, she is one of the successful summer research program students. And she finished her project. I will let her to talk about her project with you. And Dr. Zoltowski, she is the faculty in charge of third-year research projects. And all the third-year students, they have to do either a research project or a case report. And I'm the Associate Dean for Research, and ICO faculty also very active in research. And almost every faculty do research or scholar activity. So if you look at it, if you have a chance to look at the ICO research website, you'll see how much posters we produce, how much studies we are doing, and also for the students, how active they are doing research.
Awesome. Thank you, Dr. Payne. I think that covered like two of my questions, but we're getting into those a little bit deeper.
Jump to your questions already.
No worry yet, because I definitely want to talk about like the summer research program and the third year project as well. But we'll let Liddy introduce herself, and then we'll sort of take the conversation there. Liddy?
All right. My name is Liddy. I'm a current fourth year student. I actually got started in research in undergraduate. So I went to the University of Maryland, and one of my projects was on mental models in analogical reasoning. And we also looked at how stereotypes impact students' learning. But when I started at ICO, I wasn't sure if I wanted to do research, but I was actually very encouraged to do the summer research program. And I'm really happy I did, because it got me connected with a lot of amazing faculty. So my project, it was centered on looking at a new virtual reality-based visual field device, and we compared it to Humphrey visual field in normal subjects, and just kind of comparing how repeatable and reliable the device is.
Awesome. Thank you. So Dr. Z, if you want to sort of talk a little bit about the summer research that students do and some of the benefits of doing that program.
Is Dr. Roberts, I think, might be better to talk about the
Okay.
summer research program. I can talk about the third year project probably a little
All
bit
right.
more effectively.
Good deal.
So for summer research,
Okay, so yeah, the summer research program is a program that we started in 2019, I think. And the way the program is set up is we start speaking with our first year students early on when they come into orientation. We try to familiarize them with the way the program works. Basically, we try to connect students with mentors on the faculty and try to help them identify a project that they might do in conjunction with the summer research program. So they're sort of behind the scenes, thinking of projects, trying to connect with faculty mentors during their third year. And we have an application process that begins after the first of the year, essentially, with a deadline around March 15th or so. So by that point in time, students have connected with a mentor on the faculty, and they've already thought of and designed a research project. They discuss that in their applications and actually then apply to the summer research program. So what students do who are accepted into the summer research program is they stay on campus during the summer between their first and second year, and they conduct a major research project. The college supports students with infrastructure, office space. Of course, they have access to their faculty mentors. There's clinical research space. We really try to support the students and help them succeed with their projects, but their real focus, throughout that summer period is trying to get their projects done. And then hopefully presenting that project at a professional meeting as a poster or an oral presentation. And the ultimate goal is to take your project and actually write a paper, a scholarly paper, and submit that to the scholarly literature and try to get it published. We have had significant interest in the program, and we've had some very successful students. This past year, for example, this is a lot of credit to Dr. E. Pang. Some of her students were amazing a few years ago. They presented at 2 research meetings this past year. They presented abstracts at the Association for Research in Vision and Ophthalmology, which is a major international research meeting. They also presented abstracts at the American Academy of Optometry meeting. And they're currently working on projects of paper for publication. The students are accepted into the summer research program. They'll also receive a research scholarship. So it's a little bit of money that they're actually provided during that summer period. And there's also housing that is offered to students who want to take the college up on that. They would stay in the residential complex and actually have a place to stay. So the whole program is designed to really nurture and support student scientists and help them succeed. Our goal is to provide them with the necessary infrastructure and succeed in projects. There's also a little bit of a didactic component that's rolled into the program. We have journal clubs scheduled during the summer period. So we get together on a Friday afternoon, and the students actually that are participating in the program, they actually look at a paper in the scientific literature and summarize it and present it to the group, and we discuss the paper. We'll talk about some of the strengths and weaknesses of the research design and the conclusions, and really just sort of sit around in a really collegial manner and talk amongst ourselves about some of the strengths of your projects, how they're going, and try to support. We also have a reading list available for students that participate in the program that we encourage them to read during the course of the summer. So in a nutshell, that's kind of how the summer research program works. There's a variable number of students who participate. It's not for everybody. It's for students who have that interest in research. Currently, we have spaces for up to 6 students to participate in that program. And it's been very successful so far in helping students get involved in some major research that I think will help their careers, for years to come.
Awesome. Thank you. So Liddy, I have to come over to you next since you participated in the summer research, just to sort of share, your experience. Dr. Roberts mentioned the journal clubs, students having the opportunity to present at national conferences or be able to have publications in scientific journals. So if you just want to sort of share your journey and your experience with our guests.
Yeah, so I participated in the program in the summer of 2020, which kind of feels like ages ago, but there was a lot going on at that time. So we had to kind of deal with like the protocols and even with our IRB, just like requirements of masks and maintaining safety during the pandemic. But the school actually did a great job of providing PPE and making sure that we were safe and still able to carry out the intended project. So that was a little bit different. We had to kind of adapt our study. Instead of testing glaucoma patients at the time, we chose a population of ICO students and faculty, and we started off with a validation study on that population. What I really liked about the program was the amount of flexibility and independence I was given. Aside from my meetings with my mentor, we would kind of guide through our goals for the project. There's a lot of independence in your day-to-day schedule and kind of how you want to organize when you test the subjects, when you analyze the data. They definitely have checkpoints to keep you on track, but it's a very independent type of environment. And the journal club as well, that was really helpful just to learn how to kind of organize data and present it amongst your colleagues.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. So Dr. Z,
Can I interrupt?
sure.
Chair, can I interrupt? And also for the summer research program student, and not just a summer research program student, any ICO students, if their research project has very high quality and write up the manuscript, and then they can apply for the graduate research honor.
Yes.
And
I
we
forgot
have-
to kind of add that my project, we did end up publishing an abstract with Arvo, and then I presented that virtually at their meeting. So my goal is to publish a manuscript as well. Got about a few more months to do that before I graduate. So
Lindia. Another thing, Lindia, you did not point out. I have to point out for you. That's the biggest research meeting in vision science, and it's very competitive to get a paper presentation. Basically, you'll compete with the researcher from Berkeley, from Harvard, from all over the place. And Lindia, her research was selected as a paper presentation, oral presentation. That's really special.
Kudos
The other
to you,
thing
Lydia.
that the other thing that
Yeah.
she's not sharing is that she took that project, which they had to change it because they couldn't do glaucoma, and she has started the glaucoma project and has started to collect some data from those patients as well. So she has not only satisfied the summer research program, but she has really extended her research beyond that, which is what research is. Every study brings up a new question. But she also, like I said, got the chance to go back and look at some glaucoma patients. Unfortunately, she's not on campus any longer, but you have a partner doing that, right?
yeah, exactly. So it worked out. Now she's on campus, but I did get a good amount when I was there in the fall.
Yeah, so she's had a great experience with it. So she has really, I believe, has gotten to truly experience how research gets done. It's just that publication is always the hard part, because that's a hitting your head against the wall. Feels
But
like
I
some
mean,
days.
it's a very collaborative effort, and I think faculty have always made themselves available if I needed advice or needed assistance. Even Dr. Roberts looked over our statistics, and Dr. Z as well. So you do get a lot of feedback from the faculty too.
Great, great. Now, did you continue this as part of your third year research project, or was this separate?
This was a part of my third year research
Good,
project.
good.
I then extended it and looked at the virtual field device in glaucoma patients.
Okay, all right, good deal. Thank you. And so Dr. Z, if you want to talk a little bit about the third year research project that students are required to do.
Okay, in your third year, you are given information about it's called an independent study, because you have two choices. You can do a research project, or you can do a case study. And there's a lot of rules associated with it, which aren't important, but the research project is a great opportunity. And the research projects, like what Liddy did, was extending her summer research program. Some of them will add other data and look at it. They'll do different things like that if they were in the summer research program. But if you weren't in that, again, you can get involved in a faculty member's research. Like that's how our database got started. I have second years doing work study on the database, but now I have some third years for their independent study, they're working on the database as well. So I have more people adding the data, but they're also asking a question. And so it gives us a stimulus to get more data collected and to get to be able to answer their question. The nice thing about it is that it used to be a shorter turnaround time, but now you have most of your third year, a good portion of your fourth year to get it finished. Like Lydia's in her fourth year, they're still collecting data. They'll probably collect data till maybe the end of the calendar year. I'm not quite sure what their plan is. And then they'll start working on that paper for their independent study project, because that's what you need to do, is you need to submit a paper. I would say about 25% of our students do the research project. And we have some that are as simple as, I want to do a survey to find out what people know about something. We had a group that was doing a survey, and patients, do they know their A1C level, and do they know what, the diabetic patients, do they know what things mean and stuff like that. And so, and what they found out is that our patients in theory know what it is, and they know their own, but they don't necessarily take the action to lower it. And that makes some sense, but again, it's kind of nice. And then you can ask the question, well, what would it take for you to take that action? And we've had a group that has tried to do that. That's a lot harder, and we weren't getting very far on that one. So that one kind of died, because unfortunately the group, they couldn't get the subjects or the people they were trying to contact to answer those types of questions. And it is hard, because you don't want to admit that you know what you're supposed to do, you're just choosing not to do it. So but yeah, and so you have a little bit more time to do that. It is for a grade. So in that third, fourth year when you're doing it, you don't get paid for it, because you're doing it for the credit. And the grade shows up on your transcript, and it is something that is required. It's something that you have to put the work into. The research projects are a little bit more work, which is why we don't have as many students doing them. But you can work in groups, which makes it easier. And it can become quite a great experience. A lot of students, I've had two things. One is, well, I really want to do more research in my future. And I've had another student say, I might want to do more research, but not this research, because I did not like it. And you know what? That's a valuable thing to learn as well. It's a great, and you're doing it in a group with friends, so you can get that experience from there.
Yeah. And Dr. Z, do you have an idea of sort of the percentage of our third-year students on average who would do a research project?
It's been going up the last couple of years, but it's in that 20 to 25%, I think. So it's about a quarter of the class. We have some years where we get a lot of students that do it, and other years where we don't. I think the summer research program has helped a lot, because those students can then roll in a few other people, like Lydia's done. I have a student that's done that, and they can do some other data collection and get some other things answered and go from there. Whereas the summer research project, while it's very collaborative with the faculty, and you're not really working with your colleagues on that one, because that's your independent project that you're doing as part of the summer research program. Independent study is designed differently, has a different goal. And when we made the group numbers and stuff, we were trying to encourage more students to do some research, because while we don't have, at the time, we didn't have as much of an infrastructure, but as Dr. Roberts was saying, in the last 5-6 years, probably more than that, we've really increased that. And the school has always been extremely supportive of independent study research project, as well as the summer research projects. We've never had projects that don't get the funding for those that need it, or that that don't get the support of the IRB, the support of the faculty when the time comes.
All right, thank you. So I'll throw this out there for actually all of our guests. As we're talking, to our prospective students here, what advice do you have for a student who may be interested and they're like, I just don't know, I didn't do it in undergrad, I'm not sure where to start. What advice do you have for them to hopefully encourage them to pursue a research project? And if Lydia want to sort of offer advice from the student perspective?
Sure. Yeah. I think if you're considering it, that's the first step, and that's probably a sign that that's something you want to do. So definitely pursue it. I would say don't let those hesitations or like reservations about whether it's going to be a good project stand in the way of actually pursuing it. I think the first step is just to identify an idea, which the summer research program was great, is that a lot of the mentors have research that they've been doing or have a thought that they've put forth. So then you're just kind of help bringing that forward and putting that research into action. But I would say getting connected to faculty is the first step. If there's a faculty member that you've really connected with in a certain class and they're also doing research, you can ask them questions about their process and also read up on the research that they've done too.
All right, thank you. Dr. Pang, any advice?
We talk about the summer research program. We talk about the third-year research project or independent study. And there are other opportunities if you are interested to do research. So you can work as a research assistant right from the day one if you want. And we have many faculties in each area. And based on the faculty in today's meeting, you can see we cover glaucoma, we cover diabetic, and we cover pharmacy, the drug, and we cover amblyopia, myopia, dry eye. So any area if you're interested, and you can contact, teacher can set up the right person for you to talk to, and Dr. Roberts, Dr. Zoltarsky, myself, and even India. Everyone, one thing about ICO is, everyone is just eager to help each other. So do not feel like, oh, who should I talk to? And is this the right question to ask? Any questions? We are happy to help.
All right, thank you.
One thing that I'll add is that in conjunction with the summer research program, for anybody who's on campus and in the program, we have an online platform, for instance, that students can go to and they can read about the summer research program, the application process and what have you. But what we also have listed online is each of the mentors. These are faculty who are interested in research and they volunteered to act as mentors. So those individuals are actually listed on our internal website, and their areas of interest are listed, and those are updated regularly. So a student coming into the program can easily log on to that internal platform and simply look at the faculty and what their interests are, and then simply reach out to somebody individually who might have an interest on a topic that you seem like you have an interest in. So it's really, I think, just, reaching out to people and having a conversation. I've had students simply email me before, first year, and simply ask, how do I get involved in research? And so we start pointing them in the right direction and people to talk to, and you just start having conversations and you sort of figure out through that, you sort of whittle it down what may work for you. I've had students come to me from day one and say, do you have any research assistant opportunities? I had one student in particular who started working for me day one, and she worked for me for 4 years. And she ultimately went on to do a residency and now does her own research, very successful with a team of other researchers at other schools. And, she had 4 years of additional experience working around data collection, organizing it, and looking at what I did personally. So there are those types of opportunities which are very useful because you get paid at the same time that you learn about research. And some of my research assistants have gone on to do their own projects if they really kind of stuck with it. they might say, do you have any project that I could do? So I've had students over time go ahead and take on their own project and then present those at a professional meeting. And that wasn't necessarily in conjunction with the student research program. That was just them initiating something on their own.
I'd like to add a couple of things. One is both Dr. Pang and Dr. Roberts referred to day one. I'd like to have you delay that for a week or two to get yourself settled into ICO. And while some people can start on day one and be successful with all of that, I find that for some people that transition into ICO can be startling. And so it's a good idea to really think about it. But I agree, work study, that's how my database is getting created, is work study. They get paid for the hours that they spend on doing it. And so it is something, they have to be on campus for that because of what they're particularly doing. But again, it's a great way to do it. And then when they become third years, they have spent so much time with these files, they'll have no trouble coming up with a question to ask because they have really spent time with it. And so it's going to be interesting for when they move on to their third year, how they do it. And so, but I do agree with Dr. Roberts and Dr. Pang that it's a great opportunity to start off early. I've had students that started off. Again, if they come to me on day one, I say, you know what, come back to me in a week or so, get yourself settled in, and then we'll talk. I'll talk to them about it, but I don't like to hire people until they're kind of a little bit more settled in, because I don't want them to have to come back in a week or two and say, you know what, I don't really have the time after all to be able to do this. I'd rather have it be, they can commit and then do it, because you're here to be a student first. The research is a great opportunity, but you have to make sure you're getting your grades and getting the system down. I work with first years, and so I know some of the struggles that they go through. You'll see me on day one. I always teach on Mondays, so you will literally see me on day one. I'm not usually your first instructor, but you will see me. The other thing is that for the summer research program, we have a meeting coming up with the students. So where you meet with some of the mentors, you get a chance to ask questions and things like that. But I always say to the students who are considering the summer research program, the very first question to ask yourself is make sure you want to be in Chicago for this summer. Because if you apply for it and then decide you don't want to be in Chicago for the summer, you've gone through a lot of work. That doesn't mean you can't do that project. You have to switch it to work study and or a third year research project, but which you can start early. But it is something that it's still a lot of work to then decide you don't want to be here. Because Liddy, applying for it it's not like signing a form and it's not a one-page application. Like Dr. Roberts was saying, you have to go through you have a pretty well laid out project by the time you've applied for it. And it's a lot of meetings and a lot of time spent and things like that. So I think that to me was a lesson that I've learned over the few years in working with the students who have applied for the summer research program and been successful in applying for it. So.
All right,
Tisha,
thank
can
you.
I ask a quick question?
Sure.
For the group. I was just wondering, these students are probably applying to other places as well. What do you think makes research at ICO unique and different than other places?
India, do you want to talk about it from a student view, and then we are going to talk about it?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, compared to the places that I applied to, I felt like ICO had one of the most robust research programs. And I mean, I'm saying that honestly. If you just look at the amount of research that's produced like each quarter even, and the amount that's published at meetings and things like that, you can see that it's an ongoing thing and multiple faculty members. And I think also just the variety of projects that are out there. Mine was focused on visual fields, but there's a lot of research in ocular diseases, in dry eye, glaucoma. I think it's so varied that whatever your interests are, you'll definitely find it here.
One thing I want to point out, Linda, very good, thank you. So one thing I want to point out is the patient population here. ICO, if you are looking for basic science research, ICO is not the top one. But if you're looking for to do clinical related research, then we have any topic, any disease you want to study, we have the patients here. That's the bottom line. without the patience, to do human research. You can have the idea, but you cannot collect the data. So that's the thing really make ICO standing out. And another thing I want to point out is we have the central location compared to other optometry school. The clinic may be 5 miles away, maybe they have multiple clinic, but ICO everything together, much easier for a student to do research while jumping between different lectures, lab, and research patients.
Awesome, thank you. And I guess that sort of will lead to one of the questions I have. Almost similar to Dr. Peng, I've been at ICO for 17 years, and I know our research program has grown over that time. But Dr. Peng, if you just want to talk about sort of how we changed, over the last 10, 15 years when it comes to research. I know we're doing more research. We'll have a planning to have a new research suite being developed soon. So if you want to talk about sort of our development or research, that would be great.
Oh, number one reason we have the faculty who love to help students, who love to mentor students. That's why we grow. And also we have the talented student like Lindia. They join ICO, they are eager to work hard, and they keep going. Again, you come to ICO to get your OD degree, and research is not your primary outcome. But we have students, doing multiple research projects. And while we are talking about a research assistant, a good example is a student who just graduated this year, 2022. And India, you know his name, Connor Robert. He's a one-day one, showed up in my office. And based on the interview question I asked him, I have full confidence he can handle. And guess what he accomplished? He had, I think it's 9 posters, but I could be wrong. So he had 9 posters total and 2 publications with me. And he received the only award is not just for optometry school, it's for all the public health. APHA, only 1 student of research paper award. So he received that one, only 1 student per year. And he graduated with research honors this year. So the reason ICO research program grow is because we have the wonderful faculty like Dr. Roberts and Dr. Zotowski and a student like Lindia Connor and many, many students. And Dr. Roberts mentioned he has been here for 35 years. So Dan, I will let you talk about the development. So I'm not a baby. So this is actually 17 years, teacher. You're right. I said 18 years. I overcount my first year.
Well, I mean, in that period of time, I mean, there's been, a real shift in the infrastructure. My history was, how I got interested in research is I was a student, and I took a research assistant position, and I was working with a neurosurgeon, and ultimately took on my own project after doing that paid position, and then ultimately presented my work at the Association for Research in Vision and Ophthalmology as well. So that experience as a student provided me with opportunity and more of an interest to go ahead and do other things in research. So when I came to the college, one of my goals early on was to help build our clinical research program at the college, because what I also observed was that we had something to offer from a research perspective that many other schools and colleges of optometry didn't have the offer, and that was the patient population. The patient population really presented an opportunity to study a diverse set of conditions, whether it be, again, myopia, dry eye, retinal disease, glaucoma, you name it. We had such a disease-laden population, unfortunate for our patients, but we also sort of prided ourselves on providing very good care, for an indigent population. And at the same time, we found ourselves being contacted by other programs who wanted access to our patient population because perhaps they couldn't recruit similar types of patients. So I always have felt that that's been our strength. Early on, when I first started, we didn't have the same infrastructure that we do now. Now we have the Clinical Research Center and Suite, and now it's currently undergoing an expansion. We didn't have the student summer research program at that time. We didn't have an institutional review board. We had an institutional review board, but it wasn't as sophisticated, so to speak. It's evolved over time in its processes and what have you. So the whole program has evolved, over time. I know that at this point in time, that's history. What you're most interested in is, what does it have to offer now? And one of the things I also think that we have to offer right now is that our administration has made a commitment to the research community at the college to provide resources, money, space, time to develop the infrastructure for the students, not just the faculty, but hey, we need to really in our profession get our students involved in research as well, because it will open doors for them, develop opportunities, and these are our future scientists, and no profession can survive without an active research so that we're constantly evolving and developing, improving ultimately the clinical care that we provide. So I think that's one of the strengths right now in that evolution, is that there is that commitment to continue, to evolve what we're doing right now.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. So I will take a pause here from asking questions and see if any of our attendees have any questions. We do have the Q&A box that you can drop your questions in. We also have a chat box. But if anybody wants to sort of unmute and ask a question, I'll pause for a couple of seconds and see if we have any questions from the audience. All right, no question. Oh, all right. So we do have a question. Let me see. I'm interested in pursuing a research project during third year. What does the course load look like during that year? Good question. I don't know, Lydia, if you want to sort of take it since you're
since
the
that's
student living and
the
breathing
most
that
recent
one.
Yeah, I mean, let's see. So I think we put our proposal out in the fall of third year. At that time, you're taking about 4 classes and you have 3 clinic shifts per week. Each clinic shift at that time is about 3 or 4 hours. So you kind of, I think you definitely have the time in your schedule to fit in a research project. It's really just about time management. And I think third year of any years where it's the most flexible. The only thing is you do start studying for boards either by, late fall and definitely throughout the winter. So having to manage that as well. But that's why you kind of want to start early, make sure to have your plan in place so that you can have a little bit of flexibility.
Thank you, Lydia. Let's see. Nope, I don't have any other questions. So I'll continue with my questions unless one of our professors has some advice. Okay, Dr. Z.
Can I jump in on that?
Mhm.
In that you do have, that's one of the reasons that we've extended the independent study so that you have part of your fourth year as well. And depending on when you're on campus and what your project is, you can, after your boards, you can get some more work done and stuff like that. Because the expectation by the faculty and myself, since I'm the sort of run the program, is that you'll work maybe through the summertime, you'll work maybe through the fall, but that in that winter time, you're not going to get a lot done. So one of the big goals is to work really hard in the part of the summer and the fall to get data collected so that then if someone else is doing your statistical analysis, they have time to work on it while you're kind of have put your research, I don't want to say entirely on the shelf, but you've definitely cut down quite a bit on the time. And then after the board, you come back, you finish up some of that, and then you have the summertime or whenever you are around, like Liddy was here in the fall, and then she has a colleague who's here in the winter time, so that you can be adding to that. And your final paper is not due now until January, February time period. So we've kind of adjusted the deadlines. It wasn't so much to help the people with the case reports because you just don't need as much time. It was more to help the research. So we were trying to encourage more students to be able to do it, because I agree with Liddy, it's doable. But once the boards start, it becomes, I think, a little bit more panic inducing if you are spending lots of time during research. But, 1 2 to 3 hour block a week, I don't think, even during board studying, it's kind of a chance to get a break from doing studying. It's a chance to do something else.
One of the things that we continue to emphasize and a reason why we think the mentorship is really important is because for students, project selection is most critical because you do have a limited time frame in which to get your projects done. And you don't have the, you don't have an unlimited time or several different projects that are going on. You're not going to, like a faculty member would be here for several years. And, if a project hits a snag, maybe you pivot and start working on another project, work out the kinks in the project where there's a problem, and eventually it takes off again. As a student, you've got just really limited amount of time before you graduate. So what we really try to help you do is pick something that's doable. In other words, we ask ourselves questions, do we have the patient population to study that? Do we have the infrastructure to study that? Do we have a question that is answerable? And that's key, for students because of that limited time frame and limited amount of time, because students are busy people, and we always maintain that coursework and graduating is, trumps any of the research that goes on. I know even like my research assistants that I've had over time, we've tried to be very flexible. In other words, perhaps my project's extremely important, but when it comes to finals and examinations, students will disappear for a little bit, for a few weeks, so that they can do less research assistant work, but really focus on their examinations. So that's a little bit of advice that I have and observations.
I have a question from Caitlin. She's wondering, is work study available every year for research?
Yes. Yes.
The one thing you have to be careful of, and this is up to the faculty mentor as well, they have to really work with the students on this, that you cannot get paid for your research if you're using it for your independent study. That's a federal work study guideline. You can't get credit for something you're getting paid for. That's double dipping. And so you have to work with your faculty mentor. So yes, it's available, but you have to make decisions about what's happening and how things are going. And each faculty member, I think, has their own way of handling that. But as a general rule, if it's for your independent study, you cannot get paid for it.
All right, thank you. Well, we are almost sort of out of time. It's about 7:29. So I'll wrap up with this question, because I think it's always nice to hear perspectives from our faculty and students on some advice, because many of these applicants will potentially be joining us in the fall or in the near future. But what advice would you give for students who will be entering ICO? Any words of wisdom And it can be related to research and not related to research, but any advice on joining us next August?
I will start first. And if you already had your interview, I'm sure you see how faculty, student alive here and the work environment, study environment here. Hopefully you had a good experience here already. The day of interview. If you have not done your interview, come and take a look. And my day one, my interview day, I did not graduate from ICO. My interview day really bright up. I still remember my flight going back was in O'Hare, and when I head into, working on the way to the sea terminal, I remember I saw like, okay, you may want to come back. I'm like, yeah, I really like ICO. Yeah, I want to come back. So that's really locked down in my head for my interview day.
Awesome, thanks.
I just had a quick question before we wrap up.
Sure,
First of all, I
Chris.
just wanted to thank everybody for introducing yourselves and getting to know the faculty more and how supportive everybody is. I just wanted to ask Liddy, when you were a first year, did you have any previous experience with any research in undergrad, or what kind of made you narrow down and choose specific research?
Yeah, I can speak on that. So I did my undergrad at University of Maryland, College Park, and I did have a year of research experience in my last year. It was in my minor, which was human development, and it was a laboratory that focused on like analogical reasoning and kind of mental models with that. So it was a lot of my mentor at the time, like the research that he was doing. Um, I feel like I kind of end up in situations where I just ask a lot of questions, and then from that curiosity, then I find opportunities through that. So I was actually torn on doing the summer research program. I thought I wanted to go home, but then another mentor of mine like really pushed me and kind of encouraged me to pursue research. So I think it's really through mentorship was what encouraged me.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you for the question, Christopher. Dr. Roberts, any advice for folks who may be joining us this fall?
Yeah, for people who are joining us this fall, what I encourage you to do is to get out to know people and try things. There's lots of different things to do at ICO, whether it be work study or organizations, clubs, events. There's lots of opportunity to get to know upperclassmen, the faculty, different, like I say, work study positions and what have you. And so I just encourage people to try things, because you're really during your education, it's an exploration, and you don't know what your interest is going to be. Some of the things early on that I thought I might be interested in or had no idea, I only found out just through trial and error. So I encourage you to get out there and try things, and that's how you figure out what your interests are and the direction you're going to go in. The other thing is get to know people. I can't tell you. I mean, I have people that I met as a student that are mentors of mine and colleagues that that I speak with on a regular basis all these years later. So I made connections as a student with faculty at my alma mater, and I still know them today. One of my faculty members is my roommate at the academy meeting every year. So, you stay connected with people. You never know where opportunities are going to come from. One of my faculty ended up doing a graduate program in clinical research design and biostatistical analysis. And it was my keeping in contact with that faculty member that led me, after I already had my OD degree, that contact and getting to know this person led me to go on to do the same program. and then ultimately, went on to do a PhD after that. So that's one of the things that helped me the most early on, is just trying things. And, sometimes things stick, and you never know how it's going to benefit you down the road.
Thank you. Dr. Z?
My advice is maybe a little bit different than theirs, in that if you don't know how to time manage, learn that now. I don't care where you go to professional school, whether you choose ICO, and I'll give you a few statements on that in a second, or whether you go to another school, you have to be able to time manage. And I think that, and when I talk to some of the first years, that's one of the things they struggle with the most. They get behind early. So if you're a good time manager, you get that manager, you get that time management in, I think that you'll have no trouble accomplishing being able to talk with people, trying new things, and getting all that stuff down. And I think there are lots of programs out there that the students use, or apps, I guess they're called, sorry, that the students use that help with that. Get those, find those if you don't have them, and use them. Put in your exam dates, put in your homework due dates, get all that stuff taken care of, and get a schedule set up. And then, like Lydia was saying, ask questions. Like Dr. Roberts was saying, make those connections. I just want to sell a little bit of Chicago. If you are a foodie, there is no better city, in my opinion, than Chicago, because there's all sorts of great restaurants that aren't overly priced. You can find almost any food type. And the students always say, well, what's your favorite restaurant? What's your favorite? And I have an Ethiopian restaurant that, if you give me a chance, I will drag you physically to this restaurant and make you try it, because it is my favorite place to go to. And I take small groups of students there whenever I can, because I just really enjoy it. But there is there's a great opportunity here in this city as well. If you're a sports fan, we've got at least one of everything. Men's, women's, all of that. And if you're not a sports fan, you like the arts, we've got that too. And Chicago's you can get pretty reasonably priced tickets for some of this stuff as a student and things like that. And so I think it's a great city. So I'm going to say, I think ICO is fantastic, but I also think that the city of Chicago is a great place to be too.
Can I add one more
Awesome.
thing? If you're an outdoor person and ICO is running distance, 5 minutes away from the lake. So we have about 20 miles up and down for you to run, biking, walking, and that's fantastic. And hiking, beautiful hiking trail close by. So again, if you're an outdoor person, you'll find the things you need at ICO, not in Chicago, not close to ICO.
One last thing I would like to say too, and just to echo what Dr. Zoltowski said, is that, to be successful, to be a successful student, time management is key. It's just there, you find a lot of the material is, it just takes time to sit down and sort through it. And again, you've got busy schedules and what have you. But what I have seen over time, over many years, is that the students who are good time managers and devote the time, to the coursework, tend to do well. And sometimes where I see people getting tripped up is, if you really sort of delve into things, they're really not managing their time well and really devoting the time to the studies. So that's important to be able to grasp that.
Awesome. Well, thank you. That's actually all the advice I usually give applicants as well when they're matriculating into ICO and just even preparing for optometry school. So thank you all for sharing that. So I'll see if there are any attendees who have any other questions for us before we will end our time this evening. I don't see anything in the chat. Let me pop up Q&A. Don't see anything in the Q&A. Well, I thank you all for joining us and learning more about ICO's research program. In the chat, I did pop in the link that Dr. Peng talked about a little bit when we started a little while ago, which is the research link. So you can look at all the faculty research that is done, has been done at ICO. And if you do visit ICO, you actually, and if you take a tour, you'll get a chance to read some of the research posters that we do have in some of the hallways of the college as well. So that information is available. So if you're coming to either do a tour on your own, or if you're coming as part of interview day, you'll get a chance to check some of that, some of those posters out. So with that, I think we are done this evening. I thank you all for your time. I thank our speakers for sharing their passion for research and their passion for ICO as well with our attendees. And if anybody has any questions, you can definitely reach out to the admissions team at admissions@ico.edu. Or if you have any follow-up questions that maybe you want to send to any of our speakers, you can email me directly at tjohnson@ico.edu, and I'll make sure to forward your message on. So with that, I thank you all, and you guys have a good night.
Hi,
Thank you,
everyone.
Tisha.
Thank you for joining us.
Bye.